Happy Sabbath, everyone, and welcome to our Family Togetherness Week. So, today I'll be talking about COVID-19 and the mental health. Right, so we've been dealing with COVID-19 for a while, and in Jamaica, we've been dealing with it for about a year and 6 months, right? And you think we would have gotten used to it by now, but it keeps coming with surprises. We have gone through various strains. So right now we're at Mu, and we wonder if we're going to complete the Greek alphabet, but hopefully not. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our mental health has been affected in various ways, and it's quite unavoidable, same. So, we experience various emotions. Some emotions are things that we've never experienced before. It's quite new, it's different, and it feels very strange to some of us. Some persons may talk about what they are experiencing, while others prefer not to. And so we're going to be going through some of these emotions that you may experience, you may encounter, and how do we cope with these emotions? So depression is the one that tops the list. So you might be happy some days and you feel like, yes, you can take on the world, you can take on this pandemic. But then there are some days when you feel really sad. You just get up and you're just tearful. You really have no interest in doing the things that you normally would do. You're not sleeping well, or you're sleeping too much, eating too little, or eating too much. You just feel hopeless, just feel guilty for some reason. Some persons may struggle with suicidal ideations. And these are things that happen to some persons during the pandemic. And then there's grief. Grief not necessarily meaning grieving because you would have lost someone to the COVID-19 virus. However, there may be grief because you're missing out on things that you would usually do. So activities that you usually do with your friends, with family members, you're not able to do it anymore, right? You're not able to have dinner with your family. You're not able to go spend the weekend with them, to go hiking, to go fishing, to go to the beach, to go river, play dominoes. And I mean, you're going to grieve about that because you're not able to do it. Then there's anxiety. Anxiety can be good and bad. So anxiety is good in the sense that if we're hypervigilant during the pandemic, because I mean, we need to be hypervigilant. We need to be very careful. We need to observe various precautions. But then there's the anxiety that kicks in where you wonder if you're doing enough to prevent the spread of the virus. So am I washing my hands enough? Am I wearing my mask as I should? Am I wearing the correct mask? Am I wearing it correctly? Am I changing my mask as often as I should? For persons that go out to work and also persons that work in the healthcare setting, am I bringing home the virus with me? Am I bringing home the virus to infect my spouse, my children, my elderly parents, right? So these are things that we do think about and we get anxious about it. Will I get COVID-19? If I got COVID-19, will I die? Or will I have a good course? These are things that we think about, and that's quite natural. Insomnia. So you have persons that since the pandemic has started, we may be really exhausted, but for some reason we can't fall asleep. Or we fall asleep early and then we're up at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning and you can't seem to go back to sleep. Or you just fall asleep late, but you're still up early again. Different ways in which insomnia presents, and that is another struggle that persons have. Then there's trauma. Some persons may have to deal with the trauma of having had COVID-19, or having lost someone to COVID-19, or having had to watch a close family member or friend go through the stages of the virus. Uncertainty, right? This is something that everyone has to deal with. Everyone copes with uncertainty. We have no idea what this virus will bring next, right? We're definitely not expecting to be at the strain Mu, and there is uncertainty that looms. And even though we are Christians and we're people of hope, we still worry about what will happen next. Then there's something called post-COVID syndrome, and this is a real thing. A lot of times we may hear about the physical effects that post-COVID syndrome has, but not often do we hear about the neuropsychosocial effects, psychological effects. So persons that would have been infected with COVID-19, especially the persons who would have been in intensive care unit. So persons that would have had severe symptoms and signs of COVID-19 may have been required to be on ventilation and on a ventilator, needed oxygen, had to be in hospital even up to 3 months. These persons tend to be more predisposed to having mental illness after they would have recovered. And so they do need help in rehabilitation into normal society, or what we consider normal in this pandemic. And so they will experience depression, anxiety, PTSD as well. And then, of course, what I would have described, the emotions, as adults, we may be able to express these emotions. But what about children? Children, especially our toddlers, up to probably those in grade 3, they may not be able to express themselves as well. And so they may just exhibit things like defiant behavior. They have a very short attention span now. They're very irritable. And this is basically them showing how the pandemic is affecting them. And of course, we have our teenagers. They're just frustrated, bored, and they can't get to explore because they are at a point in their life where they want to explore, and they're very restricted given all the restrictions that we have due to COVID-19. But even though we have spent some time talking about the emotions that we do go through with COVID-19, what we're now going to talk about is how do we cope, given that, yes, we do not know what will happen in the future. And even though we do serve a God that knows the yesterday, the now, and the tomorrow, we are living in the now pretty much. And how do we cope with COVID-19 and its effects? Take care of you. Number one, take care of you. Oftentimes, especially if you're a selfless person, you tend to look after everyone else and then you leave you for last. But be a little bit selfish right now. Take care of you. Have balanced meals, exercise 4 to 5 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes a day. Do some physical activity. Take deep breath exercises, right? Take a deep breath in. Exhale out. Do visualization techniques, right? And these techniques are pretty much thinking about things that you like to do. So if you like to go to the beach, think about being at the beach. All right, lying on the sand, feeling the warm sand under your feet, feeling the waves crashing against your body. All right, do things like that. Take care of you. Find an activity that you like to do, and even if it's just for a few minutes for the day, do it. So if you like to sing, you like to listen to music, you like to jog, you like to read, just do something that is just for you. Secondly, telecommunication. We live in a day and age where communication is just at our fingertips, right? You can easily call someone, you can easily send a text message, you can video call, right? So there are so many platforms that we can use to communicate with our loved ones, our friends, our families, our co-workers, right? And we should make use of them. Or you can just do the good old time snail mail, as you'll call it. So write a letter to your grandparents, right? So send pictures to them, do some DIYs at home and send to them as well. Get a pen pal. Just find ways to communicate. Also, let us try to help others through the pandemic, right? So you have an elderly neighbor, you're going to buy groceries, you could buy for them as well, bearing in mind that you try to limit the exposure to the virus. Also, or shut-ins, right? You try to do what you can to help our shut-ins as well. Share good news. So instead of, oh, me hear say so-and-so have COVID. Oh, me hear say so-and-so dead from COVID. Oh, I heard there's so many cases today. There's so many deaths today. The hospitals have no oxygen. So instead of always sharing the bad news, share the good news. Sister so-and-so had a baby. She had a safe delivery. Sister so-and-so is going to college this week, right? Brother Scott got a promotion, right? Brother Ronaldo wrote a new song, right? So share good news instead of always sharing things that are COVID-19 related. Become a volunteer counselor or just a listener. So if you know you're good at encouraging persons, encourage people. If you know you're good at listening to people, listen to people. Thirdly, seek professional help if you need professional help. So if you realize that, yes, I do have going through some of these emotions, but they seem rather intense, right? And I seem like I'm not really quite getting the handle of them, then I need some professional help. And as such, then get the professional help that you need, right? If you need it, reach out to someone. There are persons online that you can reach out to. You can also see mental health care providers in person as well. I've had persons reach out to me as well, right? If I can give you pointers as to what to do, I will. And if I can't, then I will redirect you. Just reach out to someone. Last but not least, spend more time with God. In this time, a lot of us are working from home. And so we have a little bit more time on our hands, right? And it's good time to spend more time with God, right? So it's good time to spend more time in prayer, in Bible study, in fasting, in journaling, if that's your thing, right? So writing poems, writing songs to God. And it's also a very good time to learn to listen to God, because oftentimes we tell God everything we want and we make our requests, but we don't quite listen. And so it's a good time to learn how to discern His voice and to listen to Him. So as we traverse this pandemic and we try to figure out how to cope with this pandemic and how to just live through the pandemic, let us remember whenever we're depressed, 1 Peter 5 verse 7, cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. If you're anxious, remember Philippians 4 verse 6, be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God. If you have gone through some PTSD, 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 reminds us, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And even though uncertainty looms, always remember Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I think towards you, saith the Lord, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you hope and a future. I hope this presentation would have been beneficial to us all, and I hope that we will remember some of the things that were said, take some of the techniques given, coping and coping with COVID-19 as it regards to our mental health. Please enjoy the rest of our Sabbath.